Subscribe to TalesFlix for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. The encrypted satellite phone shattered the silence of the abandoned outpost near Kabul. Its piercing ring echoed through the hot Afghan darkness. Marcus Hayes crouched behind a crumbling wall, his weapon aimed at the compound across the dusty street. He let it ring twice before answering. In his 12 years of covert missions, personal calls during operations meant only one thing: crisis. "Hayes speaking," he whispered, his focus never wavering from the target building where 3 dangerous men were meeting. The voice on the line belonged to Dr. Sarah Mitchell from Desert Valley Medical Center back in Arizona. Her trembling tone made his heart stop. "Marcus, your daughter is in critical condition. Your wife's boyfriend pushed her from a moving vehicle at highway speed." The words struck him like bullets. Emma, his 7-year-old princess. Through the crackling connection, he could hear her desperate cries in the background, calling for her daddy between painful sobs. Marcus's fingers tightened around the phone until they turned pale. "Tell me her condition," he said, his voice eerily calm despite the rage building inside. "Multiple broken bones, internal injuries, possible damage to her spine. She keeps asking for you, Marcus. The medical team, they're not sure if she'll survive the night." Before Marcus could respond, a firm hand gripped his shoulder. Colonel James Barrett, a veteran of 4 wars and countless secret operations, had been monitoring the conversation through the secure network. His hardened face showed the kind of anger reserved for those who harm innocents. "Soldier," Barrett's voice carried absolute command. "You have 24 hours. Go handle this situation. Permanently." Marcus rose slowly, his imposing frame unfurling like a trained hunter preparing to strike. At 34, he'd neutralized more threats than most people could imagine. He'd worked in darkness where right and wrong blurred into survival. But this wasn't about duty. This was family. "Who is he?" Barrett asked, already arranging extraction. "Jake Morrison. Unemployed construction worker with addiction issues and anger problems." Marcus's voice was emotionless, but his eyes promised retribution. "He's been involved with my wife for 6 months." Barrett nodded grimly. "The chopper will have you home in 18 hours. Everything else is unofficial." As Marcus collected his equipment, autopilot taking over while his mind raced, he thought about Rachel, his wife of 9 years. The woman he'd trusted completely. The woman who'd grown distant during his deployments, who'd started arguments about his absence, who'd eventually stopped communicating altogether. He should have noticed the warnings. New wardrobe, sudden fitness obsession, phone always face down when he was home. But he'd been consumed by missions, by providing security for his family, by serving his country. He'd trusted her completely. That trust had nearly killed his daughter. The extraction helicopter's blades were spinning when Marcus reached the landing zone. As he climbed aboard, he scrolled through photos of Emma on his phone. Her missing tooth grin at Christmas. Her excitement learning to ride her bicycle. Her frosting-covered face at her 7th birthday celebration just weeks ago. Someone would answer for every tear she'd cried tonight. Someone would pay for every injury, every moment of terror and agony. Marcus Hayes had spent his career making dangerous people disappear. Now, he would use those skills for the most personal mission of his life. The helicopter rose into the desert night, carrying a father toward a confrontation that Jake Morrison couldn't possibly prepare for. 24 hours earlier, Marcus had been reviewing tactical plans in a secure facility. Now, sitting under the harsh lights of Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, he was someone different entirely. The change had happened fast. It always did. His phone vibrated with a message from his sister-in-law, Jennifer Hayes. "Rachel's at the hospital with Emma. Jake disappeared after the incident. Police searching but no leads yet." Marcus deleted the message and leaned back, remembering how everything started. He'd met Rachel Thompson at a veterans support meeting 9 years ago. She'd been volunteering, helping soldiers transition to civilian life. She was stunning, caring, and seemed to understand the weight of service. They'd married within 6 months. The first few years worked. Rachel had embraced military life, the deployments, the secrecy, the constant relocations. When Emma was born, she'd seemed complete, dedicating herself to motherhood. Marcus believed they were building something lasting, something worth protecting. The problems began around year 5. Marcus's missions became longer and more critical as his expertise made him essential for sensitive operations. Rachel started complaining about single parenthood, about loneliness, about feeling abandoned. He tried explaining that his work mattered, that he was protecting people like her and Emma. But explanations couldn't warm an empty bed or comfort a sick child at midnight. By year 7, Rachel had stopped complaining. She'd become cold, independent. When Marcus returned from assignments, she'd be cordial but detached. She'd taken a part-time job at a local fitness center, claiming she needed life outside their home. New friends, new interests that excluded him. Marcus had noticed but hadn't investigated. In the field, survival meant reading every signal, catching every deception. At home, he'd chosen trust over suspicion. It had been a devastating mistake. Jake Morrison had appeared 6 months ago, a troubled construction worker with a history of violence and substance abuse. He'd been training at Rachel's gym. Marcus had encountered him once when returning home unexpectedly from a mission. Jake had been repairing Rachel's car in their driveway, shirtless despite the Arizona heat. Marcus's instincts had screamed warning, but Rachel had dismissed his concerns. Jake was just being helpful. He was struggling financially and needed work. She was being compassionate. Marcus had accepted the explanation because he'd wanted to believe it, because questioning it meant admitting his marriage was crumbling while he served overseas. The boarding announcement pulled Marcus back to reality. As he entered the aircraft, he recalled the conversation with Jennifer 3 weeks ago. She'd called while he was between missions in Virginia. "Marcus, there's something you need to know about Rachel." He'd been exhausted, running on minimal sleep and excessive coffee. "What about her?" "I saw her at Angelo's last Tuesday with that construction worker. They were intimate." Marcus had felt ice in his veins. Define intimate. Holding hands. Kissing. "I'm sorry, Marcus. You needed to know." He disconnected without responding, then sat in his empty hotel room, staring at nothing. 2 choices: confront Rachel immediately or wait until he could handle it face to face. He'd chosen to wait. Another error in judgment. Now his daughter was fighting for survival because Jake Morrison had lost control and thrown a 7-year-old child from a speeding vehicle. Because Rachel had brought a dangerous criminal into their world and exposed Emma to harm. Because Marcus had been overseas while his family disintegrated. The plane climbed into the Arizona sky, carrying Marcus toward a hospital room where his daughter lay broken, and toward a reckoning that would transform every life it touched. He opened his phone and studied Jake Morrison's social media profiles, memorizing locations, patterns, connections. The man had been foolish enough to document his entire existence online. Finding him would be simple. And when Marcus found him, Jake would learn that some fathers never forgive, some fathers never forget, and some fathers are exceptionally skilled at making problems vanish permanently. Desert Valley Medical Center at 3 in the morning was a temple of artificial light and quiet desperation. Marcus moved through the corridors like a shadow, his civilian clothes, dark jeans and a black jacket, doing nothing to hide the predatory grace in his movements. Nurses and security personnel instinctively created space without understanding why. He found Emma in the pediatric intensive care unit, tiny and fragile against the sterile white sheets, connected to machines that beeped and hummed with mechanical life. Her left arm was encased in plaster, her face bruised and swollen, her breathing assisted by tubes and monitors. Marcus's hands clenched into fists at the sight of his daughter reduced to this broken state. "She's stabilized," Dr. Gerald Porter said quietly from behind him. The physician looked drained, his medical scrubs wrinkled from an extended shift. 3 fractured ribs, broken left arm, severe head trauma, and internal bleeding that we've managed to control. The next 48 hours will determine if there's lasting neurological damage. Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. He pulled a chair beside Emma's bed and took her uninjured hand in his. Even unconscious, she gripped his fingers weakly. "Daddy." Her voice was barely audible, distorted by the breathing apparatus. "I'm here," Princess. Daddy's here now. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused but searching. When she found his face, tears began streaming down her bruised cheeks. It hurt so much, Daddy. He was so angry. Marcus leaned closer, his voice gentle despite the fury building inside him. Can you tell me what happened, sweetheart? Emma's story emerged in fragments, interrupted by pain and medication. She'd been in the backseat of Jake's truck when he and Rachel started arguing. Jake had been drinking heavily. She could smell it, the same smell that reminded her of Uncle Robert at Thanksgiving. Rachel had begged Jake to slow down, telling him he was terrifying Emma. He'd responded with cruel words about Marcus, called him names that made Rachel cry, said terrible things about their family. He said mean things about you, Daddy. Mommy told him to stop, but he got angrier. He said you weren't my real daddy anymore. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice calm. What happened next, Princess? Mommy tried to grab the steering wheel. Jake hit her, and the truck went really, really fast. Then he opened my door and Emma's voice broke. He said I was just extra baggage. He pushed me out. Daddy. He didn't even slow down. The machines around them seemed to beep louder as Marcus processed what his daughter had just revealed. Jake Morrison hadn't thrown her out in a moment of panic during an accident. He'd deliberately opened the door and pushed a 7-year-old child from a speeding vehicle at highway speeds. It had been attempted murder. Where's Mommy now? Marcus asked. She came earlier. She was crying a lot. She said she was sorry and that she was going to make Jake disappear. But I told her I just wanted you to come home. Emma's eyes grew heavy from the medication. I missed you so much, Daddy. Marcus kissed his daughter's forehead. Sleep now, Princess. Daddy's going to make everything right. As Emma drifted back into medicated sleep, Marcus stepped into the hallway where Jennifer was waiting. His sister-in-law looked like she'd aged years in one night, her usually polished appearance disheveled and worn. Where is she? Marcus asked. Rachel? She went home around midnight. Said she needed to change clothes and think. Jennifer's voice carried barely contained fury. Marcus, there's something else you need to know. The police talked to witnesses. Jake didn't just push Emma out. According to a truck driver who saw everything, he actually grabbed her by her shirt and threw her, like she was trash. Marcus's hands slowly curled into fists. Any word on his location? Police have his truck description and license plate, but no sign of him yet. His apartment's been cleared out, and his ex-girlfriend says she hasn't heard from him in months. Jennifer studied Marcus's face with growing concern. You have that look, Marcus. The one you get when you're about to do something irreversible. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. I've known you for 9 years. I know what you do for work, even if I don't know the details. And right now, you look like you're planning something dangerous. Marcus met her eyes directly. If Jake Morrison is still breathing 48 hours from now, it won't be because I didn't try to find him. Jennifer grabbed his arm. Marcus, think about Emma. She needs her father, not a father in prison for murder. She needs her father to make sure the monster who tried to kill her never hurts anyone again. Marcus gently removed her hand. And she needs to know that people who hurt her family face real consequences. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found Tommy Rivera, a former teammate who now worked private security in Phoenix. Tommy had transitioned to civilian life 3 years ago, but maintained connections throughout the city's darker corners. Tommy, it's Marcus. I need a favor. Jesus, Marcus, I heard about Emma. How is she? Alive. Barely. I need everything you can find on Jake Morrison. Everything. Where he drinks, where he buys his drugs, who he owes money to, where he might run when he's scared. I need it in 6 hours. There was a pause. Marcus, man, you need to let the police handle this. The police are going to arrest him and put him in a cell where he'll be fed 3 meals a day and given cable television. That's not justice for what he did to my daughter. Another pause, longer this time. I'll make some calls. Marcus hung up and looked back through the window at Emma, so small and broken in her hospital bed. Jake Morrison had made a fatal error in judgment. He'd hurt the one person in the world that Marcus Hayes would kill or die for. And now he was going to learn that some sins can't be forgiven, some crimes can't be forgotten, and some fathers are exceptionally skilled at making problems disappear forever. Tommy Rivera arrived at the hospital cafeteria at dawn carrying a thick manila envelope and the grim expression of someone who'd spent the night talking to people who don't talk to strangers. Marcus sat across from him at a corner table, nursing black coffee that had long since gone cold. "This isn't good, Marcus," Tommy said, sliding the envelope across the table. "Morrison isn't just some loser construction worker with a temper. He's connected to something bigger." Marcus opened the envelope and spread the contents across the table. Police reports, financial records, surveillance photographs, and what appeared to be pages from a very unofficial dossier. Jake Morrison's life laid bare in stark black and white. Connected how? His cousin is Vincent Martinez. Runs narcotics for the Sinaloa operation through Phoenix. Jake's been doing odd jobs for the organization. Nothing major, just moving packages and providing alibis. But it means he's got places to hide and people who will help him disappear. Marcus studied a surveillance photo of Jake leaving a warehouse in South Phoenix. The man was larger than Marcus remembered, over 6 feet tall, maybe 220 pounds, with the build of someone who'd spent years doing manual labor. Prison tattoos covered his arms, including what looked like gang affiliations. "There's more," Tommy continued. "The reason he was so angry yesterday, Rachel had been pressuring him to leave town with her. Apparently, she thought you were never coming back from your latest deployment and wanted to start fresh with Jake. When he found out you were coming home, he lost control." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Where is he now?" "Best guess? His cousin's got a safe house in Mesa. Old industrial building surrounded by warehouses and empty lots. Perfect for making someone disappear." Tommy leaned forward. "Marcus, Vincent's not some small-time dealer. He's got serious firepower and zero tolerance for people who threaten his operation. If you go after Jake, you'll be starting a war. Then I'll finish one." Marcus gathered the papers and photos. "What about the police investigation?" "Detective Michael Cross is handling it. Good cop, but he's working the case by the book. They've got an alert out, but Jake's truck was found burned out this morning in Temp. He's definitely running scared." Marcus stood and pulled out $500 in cash. "For your time and your discretion." Tommy pushed the money back. "Keep it. Just be careful, man. Emma needs her father alive." Marcus pocketed the cash and headed for the parking garage. His truck, a modified Ford F-250 with reinforced panels and hidden compartments, waited in the shadows. He'd bought it with the understanding that his work sometimes followed him home. Today, he was grateful for that paranoia. The drive to his house took 20 minutes through morning traffic. The 2-story house in Scottsdale looked exactly as he'd left it 3 weeks ago. Manicured lawn, white picket fence, the American dream in suburban form. Only now it felt like a stage set, a lie he'd been living without knowing it. Rachel's car was in the driveway. Marcus sat in his truck for a moment, studying the house where he'd believed he was building a life. Then he got out and walked to the front door. She was waiting in the living room, still wearing the same clothes from the hospital. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared from crying, and she looked like she'd aged a decade overnight. When she saw Marcus, she started to stand, then seemed to reconsider. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." He studied her face, looking for any trace of the woman he'd married. "How long?" "What? How long have you been sleeping with him?" Rachel's composure cracked. 6 months. "But Marcus, it wasn't supposed to." 6 months. Marcus's voice was deadly calm. "You brought a drug dealer with a history of violence into our home, around our daughter, for 6 months. I didn't know about the drugs. He told me he was trying to get his life together." Marcus stepped closer, and Rachel instinctively backed away. She'd never seen this side of him, the predator he became when lives were on the line. You didn't know. You didn't ask. You didn't care. You just opened yourself to the first man who paid attention to you while your husband was serving his country. Don't you dare judge me. Rachel's voice rose. You were never here. I was raising Emma alone while you played soldier all over the world. I was protecting people like you and Emma, building a future for our family. Marcus's eyes were cold as winter, and you were destroying it. I love you, Marcus. I thought maybe we could all be happy. Happy. Marcus repeated the word like it was foreign. Is Emma happy right now, Rachel? Lying in that hospital bed with broken bones and possible brain damage because your boyfriend threw her from a moving truck. Rachel collapsed back onto the couch, sobbing. I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can get counseling, work things out. Jake's gone, and I'll never see him again. We can. There is no we anymore. Marcus's voice cut through her tears like a blade. You made your choice. Now live with the consequences. He headed upstairs to their bedroom, his bedroom now, and pulled a large duffel bag from the closet. From a hidden compartment behind the dresser, he retrieved items that Rachel had never known existed. Night vision equipment, encrypted communication devices, tactical gear, and an arsenal that would have impressed most special operations units. When he came back downstairs, Rachel was still crying. Where are you going? She asked. Marcus paused at the front door. To clean up your mess. Marcus, please don't do anything stupid. Think about Emma. He turned to look at her one last time. I am thinking about Emma. I'm thinking about a father's responsibility to protect his child from monsters, even when those monsters were invited in by her mother. Marcus left Rachel crying in their living room and drove away from the life he'd thought he was building. In 6 hours, when visiting hours started, he'd be back at Emma's bedside. But first, he had a war to start and a man to find. Jake Morrison had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Now, he was going to learn what happened when someone hurt Marcus Hayes' daughter. The Rusty Anchor was the kind of establishment where people went to disappear. Located in a strip mall between a pawn shop and a check-cashing store, it attracted the desperate, the dangerous, and those who fell somewhere in between. Marcus sat in his truck across the street, watching through binoculars as the afternoon crowd filtered in and out. According to Tommy's intelligence, Vincent Martinez conducted business here every Tuesday between 3 and 5. Drug money got laundered through the bar's gaming machines, and information flowed as freely as the watered-down whiskey. If Jake was hiding in Phoenix, someone here would know where. Marcus checked his gear one more time. Concealed pistol, tactical knife, zip ties, and a small electronic device that would disable cell phones within a 30-foot radius. He wasn't planning to start a fight, but if one found him, he'd finish it. The bar's interior was exactly what he'd expected. Dim lighting, cheap paneling, and the smell of spilled beer and broken dreams. A handful of men sat at the bar, nursing drinks and avoiding eye contact. In a corner booth, Vincent Martinez held court with 2 lieutenants, counting money from a gym bag. Marcus approached the bar and ordered a beer, keeping Vincent in his peripheral vision. The man was smaller than his cousin Jake, maybe 5'8" and wiry, but he carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight because he always fought dirty. You're new, the bartender said, sliding a bottle across the scarred wooden surface. Her name tag read Maria, and she had the weathered look of someone who'd seen too much and said too little. Passing through, Marcus replied, taking a sip of beer that tasted like it had been filtered through sand. Most people who come here aren't passing through. They're running to or running from. Marcus met her eyes. Which one are you? Maria smiled grimly. Both. At the corner booth, Vincent was finishing his business. The lieutenants pocketed their shares and headed for the door, leaving him alone with his thoughts and his paranoia. Marcus waited until they were gone, then approached the table. Vincent Martinez. The man looked up, his hand automatically moving to the bulge under his jacket. Do I know you? Marcus Hayes. I believe you know my wife, Rachel, and your cousin Jake. Vincent's eyes narrowed. You're the soldier boy. Heard you were overseas. Change of plans. Marcus sat down uninvited, his posture relaxed but ready. I'm looking for Jake. Jake's family. I don't give up family to strangers. Marcus leaned forward slightly. Jake threw my 7-year-old daughter out of a moving truck last night. She's in the ICU fighting for her life. So I'm going to ask you one more time, and I suggest you think carefully before you answer. Where is Jake Morrison? Vincent laughed, but there was no humor in it. You got balls, soldier boy, coming into my place and making threats. But you're in my world now, and my world has different rules. You're right, Marcus said calmly. Your world does have different rules. In your world, violence solves problems. In your world, family is sacred. In your world, a man protects what's his. He pulled out his phone and showed Vincent a photo of Emma in her hospital bed, broken and connected to machines. This is what your cousin did to my family, to a 7-year-old girl who never hurt anyone. Marcus's voice remained conversational, but his eyes were arctic. Now, in your world, what do you think should happen to Jake? Vincent studied the photo, and for a moment, something like disgust flickered across his face. Jesus Christ. Jake always had a temper, but this is different. This is what he is, Marcus said. A man who hurts children. Vincent was quiet for a long moment, considering his options. Finally, he spoke. You know what Jake's problem is? He's stupid. Always has been. Gets emotional, makes bad decisions. He took a drink from his beer. Throwing a kid out of a truck. That's the kind of thing that brings heat on all of us. So where is he? Safe house in Mesa. Industrial district, surrounded by warehouses and empty lots. But it's not just Jake there. He's got 3 of my boys watching him until things cool down. Marcus absorbed this information. Why are you telling me this? Because Jake's become a liability. Vincent looked at the photo on Marcus's phone again. And because some things are just wrong. Family or not. He pulled out a pen and drew a rough map on a napkin. Here's the address. But soldier boy, those boys guarding him are good at what they do. They won't just hand him over. Marcus studied the map, memorizing the details. I'm not asking them to. You're planning to take on 4 armed men by yourself. I faced worse odds with higher stakes. Marcus stood to leave. There's just one thing you need to understand, Vincent. After tonight, this never happened. You never saw me, never talked to me, never heard my name. Because if you or anyone in your organization ever comes near my family again, I'll make Jake's fate look merciful. Vincent nodded slowly. Fair enough. But Marcus, when you find Jake, make it count. Make sure he understands why he's dying. Marcus walked out of the Rusty Anchor, carrying the location of his daughter's would-be killer and a clear understanding of what needed to happen next. As he drove toward Mesa, he thought about the men he'd eliminated in service to his country. Enemy combatants, terrorists, threats to national security. Tonight would be different. Tonight would be personal. And Jake Morrison was going to learn that some fathers don't forgive, don't forget, and don't leave anything to chance. This concludes part 1 of our story on TalesFlix. What do you think Marcus will do when he finds Jake? Was Vincent right to give up his cousin? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to TalesFlix for more gripping stories like this one. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next chapter of this intense tale of justice and revenge.